Hi there, everyone. It's 4 o'clock in New York. At this very moment, Donald Trump's political career is spoiling faster than a box of Trump steaks left out in the sun. A brand new poll shows record levels of disapproval for the job that Donald Trump is doing as president, with key parts of his political coalition now completely turning on him. A poll from the Washington Post, ABC News, and Ipsos shows that just 37% of voters approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing as president. 62% of them disapprove. Washington Post adds this, quote, his ratings among Republican-leaning independents have reached a new low of 56%. His approval rating stands at 25% among independents overall. One former Trump ally turned critic, the former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, puts it like this, quote, MAGA is dead. Watch.
Today, we're in a time where many Americans are realizing MAGA is dead. And do you want to know who took the actions to kill MAGA? It was the creator and the founder himself, Donald Trump. When we campaigned on lowering inflation and reducing gas prices and caring about domestic issues that matter to Americans, the White House front door became a revolving door to foreign leaders, not to Americans, and not to industry leaders and those involved in working on the domestic solutions that Americans needed.
So the issues Marjorie Taylor Greene is talking about there, inflation and the cost of everything, that has become Donald Trump's biggest political albatross right now. 23% of Americans approve of Donald Trump's handling of the cost of living. In that Washington Post, ABC News, Ipsos poll, a whopping 76% disapprove. Pollster and publisher of The Bulwark, Sarah Longwell, told me in this week's episode of The Best People that voters right now do not like what they're seeing, and they know exactly who's to blame for it. Watch.
Number one, everybody thinks the state of the country is bad, which is why right track, wrong track is so low. These guys reinforce that with their everything's terrible. And then they immediately go to how expensive things are and how the war in Iran is raising them, how tariffs are raising them. And this is one of the reasons that Trump's numbers are starting to fall, and then where the objective reality kicks in is that people know that the tariffs are Trump's. People know that the Iran war is Trump's. They don't think it's Congress. They don't think it's somebody else. They know Trump is doing it, that he made the call to do it, and that it is raising their prices, and that is what they are mad about.
Meanwhile, there is brand new reporting on how big parts of Trump's coalition, the parts that provided the money and the volunteers and the support for Donald Trump to win the Republican nomination 3 times and prevail in the general election twice, are also souring on the job Donald Trump is doing as president. Look at this headline in the Wall Street Journal. The anti-abortion movement is turning on Trump. From that reporting, quote, abortions are up in the years after the overturning of Roe, and the anti-abortion lobby has a new locus for blame. Trump is the problem, they say. The president is the problem. That's Marjorie Dannenfelser. She's the influential president of the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. Big source of their frustration is the fact that the Trump administration is allowing abortion pills to be shipped by mail. But they're not the only special interest or activist group that is mad at Donald Trump right now. Politico reports this, quote, leaders in RFK Jr.'s Make America Healthy Again movement are outraged over Donald Trump's Surgeon General nominee switch since Trump announced Thursday that Nicolle Wallace, a radiologist and former Fox News medical contributor, will replace Casey Means, a close ally of the health secretary, as Donald Trump's pick for the nation's top doctor. They've rushed to social media to share why they believe Trump's decision is short-sighted. Growing signs of discontent and Donald Trump's political base turning on him bigly is where we start today. Democratic pollster and political analyst Cornell Belcher is back with us. Also joining us, political analyst, former Senator Claire McCaskill is back, and back with me at the table for the hour, senior political analyst, contributing host on Pod Save America, the host of the podcast Runaway Country, Alex Wagner's here. Cornell, I'll let you jump in on the polling. Sarah Longwell's theory of the case is that there is a Bush line, that George W. Bush left office at 32%. And it's sort of a point at which you are basically absent any and all political juice Donald Trump is at 32% in some polls. I think ABC has him at 33. There are a couple of very reputable polls that have him at 33. This 37 is the lowest number he's registered in the ABC WashPo poll.
Yeah, no, and that number in all the polling I'm seeing it's closer to 33 than 37. And look, Nicolle, you've got to go back to George W. The Daddy Bush decades to see polling numbers that have collapsed like this, right? On every measure, the president is underwater, and on the broader brand pillars of the Republican Party having to do with the economy and even immigration, the president's now underwater. And particularly underwater, you talked a little bit about this with independent voters, even with independent voters who lean Republican. He's completely collapsed into the 30s with independent voters. Now, why does this matter? This matters because of the elections. And if you look at way independent voters are breaking, like, you had the governor, New Jersey's governor, Nikki Sherrill, on your podcast recently, and I think she's fantastic. But she won independent voters by double digits by 13 points. Spanberger won independent voters in Virginia by 19 points. Everyone on this broadcast know it's really hard to be competitive, especially in these swing districts, if you're losing independents by double digits. The other interesting number, really quickly, Nicolle, I thought was fascinating in that Washington Post data, was he's now underwater on the economy. Majority of non-college white voters are now disapproving of his job on the economy. Why, again, is that important? He carried those voters by better than 30 points in the last election. So if they're turning on him, it becomes really problematic. The whole coalition begins to collapse.
I have this theory, and this may put me in the minority, but I think some of the talk on the MAGA side about rigging the election is in some ways this psychological bulwark against the size of the losses, because you can gerrymander it into the shape of your favorite zoo animal. You can make a map look like a giraffe and you still can't win. You know what I mean? There's no gerrymander if you're Trump MAGA and you're losing non-college educated white voters by 20, 30 points.
Or independent voters by 15 or 20 points. One last quick thing on this, Nicolle, is you opened with Marjorie Taylor Greene saying a MAGA is dead. I got a feeling that all of us are going to be talking about the rebirth of MAGA in the next 2 years, led by Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, I sort of have this image that Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker are helping to kill it, right, so that they can be like the ones with the things on it. But it's as you said, I feel like we will all reconvene to cover that many news cycles. Claire McCaskill, I feel like you're the foremost expert on the importance of what's happening in these poll numbers. Just tell me how you read these and what your warnings are for Republicans.
Well, all you have to do, Peter Baker had a great tweet today where he went back and did the history of presidential approvals and losses in midterms. And presidents that had a 51% disapproval, 51% approval still lost 30, 40 seats. Bush, who was about where Trump is now, I think you'll painfully remember he lost 30 in the midterm when his numbers were so low. But what Sarah said is really important. And one of the things that happens with voters, especially voters who are not dialed in to politics 24/7 like we are, they get their information about, well, whose fault is it? Whose fault is it? And it's not clear always whose fault it is. Is it state government? Is it local government? Is it federal government? Is it the Republicans? Is it the Democrats? On this, it's very obvious. Gas prices are Trump's. And there's nothing bigger than gas prices, ever. With those independent voters, with those white, non-college educated, with the areas of the electorate that Trump has to win, even if he just wins it by a small margin. You can't get away from it. And what's really interesting about the gas prices is nobody's trying to lie about it. They're basically saying we're just going to have to suffer for a while. It's worth it to go after Iran. Well, it's not to the folks that are driving those big pickups in Missouri. It's not worth it to them. They don't even understand why we're really there. They don't even get what the deal is. And so they're pulling up and they're spending over $100 to fill their tank. And they do not understand why we had to go to war with Iran. So she's absolutely right. Trump owns proudly the tariffs. He's the only one. And tariffs is his favorite word. And the war in Iran, he owns them. He's going to own them all the way to November. And by the way, the presidential nominee for the Republican Party who tries to carry the MAGA flag, they're going to own them.
The other problem they have is new. It's all become, as you know, I've said this for years now, like it makes my brain hurt. Covering Trump has made me dumber. You now have the MAGA coalition saying the same thing, right? So you've got Joe Rogan and Tim Dillon echoing that message. Here's right-wing MAGA adjacent podcaster. I don't even know if he'll own that title, but that's how I view him. This is Tim Dillon.
This is not a good show. That's the biggest problem here for DT. This is not a good show, and he knows it. He knows this is not a good show. Trump is well aware of why he is the president. He knows this country better than most people, maybe anyone. And it's not a nice thing. This is the opposite of great TV. It isn't exciting. It's not nearly as engaging as it needs to be. So what you have is a bunch of people that are checking out, which he doesn't like. They're tuning out. They're turning it off. And so when they turn it off, you got to remember, they go out into the world. The gas prices are high. The food prices are high. Why? This war. But they're not watching his show anymore.
So I don't know Tim Dillon, and I don't want to give him too much credit, but I don't want to take any credit away from him either. It is one of the more astute articulations of what's going on. So it's not a good show, and when they turn it off, the bad show, you got to remember they go out into the world. The gas prices are high. The food prices are high. Why? This effing war. But they're not watching his show anymore.
Makes me rethink my podcast.
You know, I'm MAGA podcast curious.
The best people needs to get
maybe
some
maybe a worse people like Summer Series.
Someone please make Tim Dillon into a GIF and send it to me on the internet, because he speaks for all of us. It's not a good show. Yeah. I mean, I would argue it's hard to separate the show from reality. What is real in that?
But not
metaphor?
for that base. It's not hard for them. They have conflated the two for years.
Well, right. And I think, I mean, it's almost like he's trying to betray the people that put him in office.
Yeah.
Like you touched on the Maha Make America Healthy Again crew. Like, he appointed, he brings Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in, and like no more than 5 minutes after he becomes part of Trump's cabinet, he's sitting on Air Force One eating a Happy Meal or whatever it was, like a Big Mac. And that was the leading indicator that like the promises of making America healthy again were maybe not going to come to fruition.
Yes.
Like literally with Kennedy installed and Trump as president, they're increasing domestic production of glyphosate, which is the weed killer Roundup, which causes cancer. We know this because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. settled a major lawsuit against the makers of glyphosate, right? That betrayal is explicit, but it touches every part of the coalition. I mean, you focus, I think, rightly on the cost of living in America. 23% of the country approves of his job on that. I mean, that to me that's deathly for midterms. But then you combine
it's like the Mar-a-Lago members are the only ones happy.
I mean, who
right?
even are they the cabinet members? They're just people on the payroll, is my assumption.
They're the billionaires.
But
maybe.
it is. I mean, and when he creates a crisis, there is no thinking towards how to manage that crisis. I mean, they're still on one hand denying that gas prices are going to remain elevated. They're not giving any strategy for the reason other than the American people wanted this, which the American people know they didn't. They're not even trying to triage, and then they continue betraying these core coalitions, whether it's the Maha Moms or whether it's, you know, the anti-abortion crew that wanted the FDA to outlaw mifepristone, and lo and behold, they approved a generic version of it. Like, the betrayal is systematic and it is all-encompassing.
You know, I wonder, though, because I remember being with Claire specifically and talking about how he's in his, you know, and I always felt like I was insulting Elvis, but like in a fat Elvis impersonator phase. Sure. And then he won again. And so I wonder if the fact that
fat Elvis was still filling seats in Vegas.
Well, that's true too. But I wonder if like the fact that he's so impotent as a show, in the words of Tim Dillon, coupled with the fact that it's all a lie and they can't deny it anymore. Like, I wonder if he's humiliated his base enough for the base to say he's making a horse's ass out of us.
Yeah, it's literally the upside down world, right?
Right.
Like, it's very hard to find the reason why you stand by this person, except for your own ego. And once, I can say this because my mother is a Buddhist, but once you let go of the ego, it is very freeing, which is why you see people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's suddenly the oracle at Delphi, right? Speaking truth to the American public. And it's like, where were you? But she gave up. She gave up, basically.
Right. She let it go.
She let it go.
Right.
And you see what happens. Truth serum.
Let me play a little bit, because I think we'll spend a lot of time trying to understand the role of the Epstein betrayal, but I think it'll be the key through which they unlocked the fact that everything Trump says is a lie. This is more Marjorie Taylor Greene.
When we started talking about releasing the Epstein files, I'm like, this is a no-brainer. President Trump will just roll them out on a big cart himself. He told everybody, don't release the Epstein files. So we persisted, because that's what we promised. That's what we campaigned on, transparency and accountability, especially to pedophiles. How is that complicated? So it got to be such a gigantic amount of resistance coming from the president and the speaker and everyone, the DOJ. I said, fine, I'll do the unthinkable. I'll go over there and I'll sign my name on a discharge petition that all the Democrats are signing their name on. Talk about crossing the aisle, me, a general in the MAGA army, crossing over to sign my name with a bunch of Democrats. He said his friends would get hurt if we released the Epstein files. He said, Marjorie, these are good people. These are people you know at Mar-a-Lago. People in Palm Beach, they're going to get hurt by this. And I said, Mr. President, people have been hurt. These women have been hurt. I said, have you talked to them? I said, you should talk to them. You should have them in the Oval Office, Mr. President. You have everybody in the Oval Office. You have sports teams. You have world leaders. You have al-Qaeda terrorists that are now leading Syria. You have Mamdani. I mean, you have everybody in the Oval Office. Surely you can have these women who were raped as teenagers. Talk to them. I talk to them all the time. As a matter of fact, many of them voted for you. That's what I told them. They voted for you. Epstein victims voted for Donald Trump. And he wouldn't have anything to do with them.
I could do 2 hours on that speech, but Claire, you have al-Qaeda terrorists that are now leading Syria. You have Mamdani. I mean, you have everybody in the Oval Office. Surely you can have these women who were raped as teenagers.
Yeah, she's, you got to give her credit. She's a pretty good communicator, and she's hitting all the notes. And frankly, she's hitting them really well. I don't know what the future holds. Cornell made a prediction that we'll be covering her in the next 2 years. That may be true. But what's really interesting about this is his inability to see the Epstein victims as folks he needed to listen to and lift up. He is so out of touch at this point. I don't think we've ever had a president this out of touch, because he has a moment here where he knows he's doing poorly and he's not turning to things that will help him. Instead, he's fixated on the ballroom, on the arch, on his name on battleships, on the color of the reflecting pool, on his name on buildings, on posters where he looks mean and cool up in federal government buildings, the new airplane. All of the stuff he's focused on just underlines with an exclamation point how out of touch he is, and makes him more and more and more unpopular. It is really interesting. He's in a hole and he just keeps digging.
What's also interesting is that if you were talking about a child, you would name the same list: his buildings, his arch, his like Lego structure. I mean, it's increasingly the things that he's doing instead of running the country or trying to articulate a rationale for the war or trying to fix the economy are nonsense. They're carrying around a little crumpled up picture of a gold ballroom. All right, no one's going anywhere. There's much more on all of this. Also ahead for us, Democrats on Capitol Hill are committed to fighting for those women that Marjorie Taylor Greene was talking about, the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's abuse, and they plan to press the case with them and for them in Donald Trump's backyard of Palm Beach, Florida. Congressman Robert Garcia will be leading the charge there, and he joins us to talk about that. Also ahead, we'll talk more about the political reckoning Donald Trump is facing in November and the dangers of his desperate attempts to cling to power with one of his earliest and loudest critics on the planet, the former Congressman Adam Kinzinger. He joins us coming up. Also later in the show, with the backlash to billionaire Jeff Bezos and his wife, the new sponsors of the celebrity-packed Met Gala. That says about Trump and the fight to protect democracy. All those stories and much more when Deadline White House continues after a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
If you give a message about this war in Iran right now, do you support the fact that we got involved militarily?
No, I kind of equate it with the Vietnam War and the Iraq War. I think a lot of us don't even know what's going on and why we're over there. Same thing with Vietnam. They didn't know why they went to Vietnam. None of this stuff was discussed. It didn't go to Congress. It wasn't discussed. It wasn't debated, nothing. It's just like, bam, let's go have war.
Cornell, today gas is $4.45 a gallon. It was $4.11 a gallon. A week ago, a year ago, it was $3.16 a gallon. The Tuesday night before the war that started Friday night, gas prices were the one economic indicator that Donald Trump touted in his State of the Union address. This was not the plan, and voters know it. I mean, to me, the power of the coalition now finding it commercially urgent to distance themselves from Donald Trump, that's all direct to their listener or their viewer. And their listener and their viewer is not buying the things Donald Trump is selling.
Well, it's hard to buy it because you walk into a grocery store every day, or you walk in, or you got to go pull up to the gas pump every day. And look, Nicolle, I think this war is going to be a bigger deal than we are giving it at the current moment. Look, I've watched the last war, how its dynamics toppled things in both parties last time around. And I think, and this war is even more unpopular than that war was, and it got there a lot quicker. And when you look at not just middle America, but even look at how Republicans, even they're soft on this war, I would not be at all surprised that this war, along with the economy, is a really sort of combined top of issue angst for a lot of Americans. Americans generally just are not for war, and if and the price they're paying for this war brings it home even quicker. I will say this though about the gas prices. Look, Americans were pretty upset about the way the economy was going even before the gas prices went up in the economy. This just accelerates it, and even if the war ended tomorrow, the economy wouldn't be better in this regard. And what most economists would tell us is it'll take 4 or 5 months at best for the shipping lanes to open up and all these and the gas prices even begin to think about coming down. So this is a long-term problem, and it's attached to the war for the Republicans.
I feel like you're being a little diplomatic with me. Let me just say, I worked for the guy that started those two wars, and we'll leave him out of it. Every single time the voters rendered a judgment, it was awful. The voters hated the war. And do you know which voters seem to have hated it the most? The 2015-16 Republican primary voters. When they quickly got rid of Marco Rubio, Chris Christie, Jeb Bush, and there were 13 others. I can't even remember who they were, because of their positions on the war.
Exactly. That's my point. Yes.
The entire reason Donald Trump becomes the nominee in 2016 is because of all the things. He was sort of I don't know that his views on tariffs were fully formed. They certainly weren't fully articulated. His views on no more forever wars, fully formed, fully articulated, and sold hook, line, and sinker to the Republican base in 2016. That's the political betrayal that
and
the
good
right
luck
is.
Marco Rubio and JD Vance as they try to dance around this. And again, I'm getting awfully bullish on Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nicolle.
Yeah, look, I mean, Claire, this is something that a lot of politicians do, which is either misreading their mandate or misunderstanding it. Trump shows a lot of signs of advanced age and lack of sleep, so maybe he forgets how he became the nominee in 2016. I don't know what explains it, but he isn't the nominee in 2016 without his position of being against the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan.
That's absolutely true. And part of this is his personality disorder. Good presidents have a broad circle that they listen to. Good presidents have people in the room that disagree with them. Good presidents listen to others' point of view, especially on something like going to war. This was a very, very small circle. He had Pete Hegseth, who's a weekend TV broadcaster and, you know, who wants to play tough guy like he's in a video game. He had Lindsey Graham, God love him, and he had Bibi Netanyahu. That was it. That was his circle of advisors that said, go do this. And because he was so taken with the power he had to do it, he doesn't think about the consequences. It went well in Venezuela. So, okay, let's just go do this thing. And now he is stuck with it. And frankly, the Iranian government is really, even though they have suffered incalculable losses, they are making them look bad. They are making the president of the United States look bad right now because this hasn't been simple. It hasn't been easy. And Americans are paying the price for it with much higher cost of goods and services.
And he's never tried to tell a story to the country. Like, he's never tried to sustain a single news cycle articulating a rationale for being there. Cornell and Claire, thank you both so much for starting us off today. Alex sticks around with me after the break. We welcome Congressman Robert Garcia. We have a lot to talk to him about, including how he and the Oversight Committee plan to continue pushing for justice for the Jeffrey Epstein survivors. Quick break. We'll be right back.